All right, guys, what's going on? We're going to give this a try again. Haven't been doing it, but all this golf talk started to get guys chirping from every angle. So Lance decided he wanted to jump on. For those of you that don't know Lance, his name's John Lamparelli. Met him through Harmon, right? He was the minority owner. He's the guy that hired me. He's been a member at Indian Pond, which is privately owned. You've heard me talk about my dislikes and likes of being privately owned.
Yeah.
He's also a member of Boston Golf and Plymouth. I think you guys have all seen him around, so welcome on board. We'll see
What's
how this
up?
goes.
What's up?
We'll take it from there. Um, it's tough. You start talking about all these things about the golf industry. We can kind of go on some rants. You guys have seen it. I went down that road. It got a little ugly at the beginning, right? Um,
Well, I would expect nothing less from you, buddy.
So now, hopefully, we can get back to talking golf and keeping it under control. We've actually agreed. It's kind of funny when I get going talking Harmon and in the business of Harmon, he gets kind of rattled up a little bit.
I get a little riled
we
up.
have to pump the brakes, just kind of like I do when I'm talking to veterans. So that's kind of each other's jobs. I think we can play off each other and have some fun with that.
Absolutely.
We got going the other day about all the different accounts and how you charge and what to charge and paying bills and how important that could be. It's nothing more frustrating than going into a business, getting fit, and you can't order the product you got fit for.
It's insane to me. I mean, it kind of takes away from the experience.
It kind of does. You kind of get it. You're all excited. And maybe
you're ready to buy. You have a captive audience.
Exactly.
Like, I mean,
I was at Golfers Warehouse this morning, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I'm never going to talk anybody out of getting fit indoors, but there's something about seeing that flight that you're looking for while you're getting fit, hearing that sound and feeling it come off the face, and you're ready to go. And then all of a sudden you're like, how do I order it? And they're like, well, you got to go to your cousin's, uncle's, brother's pro shop to get it. And you're like, oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me.
And it's frustrating for members because you see like how good places can be, how important revenue is on a daily basis. Most clubs struggle with cash flow, and there's not a lot of margin on golf clubs and equipment.
It's a volume game, though. And if you have a captive audience and a captive membership that's always rotating every couple of years between sets of clubs, and people talk, and when they go into a place like that, like Golfers Warehouse, part of the feel is seeing the ball. Exactly. Like if you can't see it, you can't really feel. Everything feels good when you're hitting into a net.
And I'm not going to bash those guys. This isn't a shot at them. I couldn't do that for a living. It would ruin the game for me because every time they talk about golf, they end up regurgitating what those companies want you to hear.
It's like a script.
It is. It's not. They don't have an opinion. You're not hearing their feelings. And I took this out of the golf course to play around with it. This is what I thought. I didn't like this. This is the flight I looked at.
And that's kind of like one of the things, like when I met you, how long ago was that? What year?
2016.
16, yeah. On a Titleist Thursday, right?
No, we hadn't even brought Titleist Thursdays there yet.
Oh, okay.
I was sitting there one day a week as kind of a trial period.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I took over. And, we went and played Indian Pond, and they were trying to get me to have a conversation about taking over, and I said, you guys have a golf pro. Let's pump the brakes on that.
Yeah, I remember that. I
didn't want to step on anybody's toes. Different things in the business. Sometimes business is business, and it has to be that way. And I know everybody kind of can talk about me being rough around the edges and things like that, but I think a lot of what you guys saw was just me being beat down by the end. You have a conversation, you do a battle with things, you get things put in place the way you want it, and then you're down in the bay for 40 hours. I come back to the golf shop and things aren't being done the way I wanted them.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. But you can be a miserable fuck.
Yeah, I agree. So can you. I think a lot of people are going to see us and think, oh, these two are going to get doing a podcast. I better contact my lawyer and get ready.
Maybe.
Ready for the liable suits.
Maybe.
We could get off the rails a little bit. But, it's one of those things. We love talking golf. We play golf a lot, with him being a member at high-end clubs as well as, like I said, and I don't mean to keep bashing, golf slumlords. I don't think he knows any better. The owner of Indian Pond, right? He's not a golfer. He doesn't.
He's a great guy. That's
what I've heard.
Yeah,
he doesn't get the business side.
Well, he just hasn't been out on a course. He built a beautiful course. as a non-golfer, that's tough to kind of understand what your members want, what they like, and the trends and things like that. And then you kind of go stale with a pro that's been there for a long time that doesn't have the same passion for golf.
Yeah, that's important too. One of the things that I used to go nuts about at New Bedford, and I'm not going to go down this rant. I got a funny story that happened this morning. I'll save that for you guys if you want to hit me up privately. I'll tell you. But it started the conversation at Spring Valley when I was there back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And everything that they did was non-golf. It was all about pretty. You wanted it green and you wanted the flowers and bloom.
It doesn't work.
But the golf side of things, they lost. And they lost the club. And I know people think I'm bashing when I say Cape Club of Sharon, but I'm not. It is what it is. It's not Spring Valley anymore.
No.
They could offer the best product in the state, but they're still the Cape Club of Sharon, and it's not Spring Valley.
That's a real estate play there.
Yeah.
Another guy that isn't a golfer.
Exactly. And back to what I was saying about why I joked with the guys at New Bedford, and that Spring Valley is where the Hurricane nickname came from.
Because just dumping water on the coast. Okay, that makes sense.
One of the things I used to tell those members all the time, right? I'm never going to Capitol Grill if I know that the chef is a vegetarian.
No,
you can't run a place if you don't taste the food, right? It's one of those things where it's just you have to understand how frustrating it is to hit a shot from 25 yards off the green and expect it to do X, and then all of a sudden
it's plugged.
And you're like,
it's plugged into the ground.
Perfect. And you make a bogey when you hit a couple good shots. They're going through a renovation over there now. I know I referred to them as Caddyshack forever, but
what, New Bedford's renovating?
Yeah, they're finally fixing the 7th green, which needed to be done.
Which one's that?
The par 3 with the green.
That
ruins everybody's day. But they're doing a couple other things that just don't need to be done. The 11th hole was a perfect golf hole the way it was. You had to worry about the bunkers on the right, and then you had to worry about hitting into the trees on the left.
Yeah.
The longer hitters hit 3-wood. If you miss 3-wood, now you're in the bunkers. Right now, they're going to move the tee back 25 yards, and all you have to do is stand up on the tee, palms away with driver, and
kind of takes the.
It just kind of takes golf out of it a little bit. You start to see that trend.
Do you think those courses that are older, like New Bedford and Plymouth and even like Wannamoisa, which is unbelievable, but those courses, they just don't have any room.
Correct. But Wannamoisa, you say Wannamoisa, they're actually now like 7,200 yards, par 69. So do they really need more room?
No, not at that course. That place is dead.
Probably what, 68, 6,900?
I don't know if it's quite that long. But I think they can stretch it.
Yeah.
But the greens crush you anyway.
That's the thing, and the thing about the 11th hole at New Bedford, the reason why it makes even less sense is now you're going to have high handicappers hitting 3-woods into a green that's absolutely diabolical. Right?
Yeah, that's gonna.
One of my good friends played the Jonh Cup a couple weeks ago out there, and he made a skin on hole 11 because anytime you have a gross event, burning on that hole is
that's a skin.
You take 100%. There, and you go to the next tee, and you're ready to go. So to add 20 yards just to add 20 yards, I mean, it makes no sense. If they could have told me,
well, it also cuts into pace of play. Like they forget. I mean, at least I don't know how you are. Well, I do, but I don't want to spend 4.5 hours out on a golf course.
Right. Yeah. That's
like I played the other day. I think we were one of the first groups out at Boston Golf. We played in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like 4 guys.
And that's the difference, the conversation between a country club and a golf club.
Yeah.
Golf clubs, you're going to have better pace of play, guys that get it. Unfortunately, a lot of these new golfers through COVID, they have money and they have access to buy their way into the places.
And they have no etiquette.
I had a buddy today that I talked to. He played a 2-man event out at Driggs this weekend.
Okay.
And they played with a couple guys. He's like, they were great. They were smoking, they were drinking, they were having a good time. He said he could be a legacy member at Wannamoisa, but he's like, I don't want to join there because I just don't think I'll have enough fun there all the time. And I get that, right? There's certain places that, one, is going to beat you up.
Yep.
And 2, it's not going to fit your vibe, and that's okay.
And sometimes that vibe can help a 4.5 hour round seem shorter too.
Exactly.
If you have a good group of guys, you don't mind being out there. But if you're there to play golf, you're there to play golf.
See, I grew up back in the '90s playing golf, and we didn't ride, we walked, and you kind of hit your ball off the tee, and you went your own way, and then then you met your way, you talked on the way to the tee,
Yep.
then you hit your shot. As soon as you grabbed your bags, you went your own way.
Yep.
It was a solo game. There was a lot of thought to it. I don't want to have a discussion about last night's Taylor Swift show in the middle of running ball, right?
You don't want to talk about Taylor Swift
exactly. If you're playing ball at the park, you're not talking about your buddies. No. You're not growing it out while you're playing ball. You do it in between shots or
100%
games. And I think too often it blends. And it kind of, and I get it for the guys that don't want that. That's fine, but keep that within your own home.
I agree with that. That's fair. That's fair.
And again, we kind of, one of the things on my notes right now is kind of the difference between Plymouth and BGC, kind of where they are. I think BGC is kind of more that, you're there to play golf. And whether it's the short course or this, that, and the other thing, it's not your bar. It's not your main hangout.
No. And
Plymouth kind of is.
Yeah, Plymouth is awesome. I mean, I joined there the course is unreal.
Right. That's one of my favorites.
They've done a lot of work on the course to make it way better, and they kind of, brought it back because they're taking all those old Donald Ross courses and they're kind of bringing them back to the way they were when he built them. But that course, as far as conditions, you can go there any day of the week and you're going to get a great product.
What are you getting into? It's not, you're not playing there. There's different conditions tournament you're playing golf every day.
They have the hornblower there and notable tournaments where they dial that place up even more. And when you think it gets harder.
Yeah.
It's a tough course. The greens protect it, but I did join there thinking I'm going to hop in a cart and buzz around. It's not like that.
I think it is anywhere.
No, it's
different golf now.
And the courses are in good shape too. They, as far as membership goes, so they have plenty of members. They can kind of support the course, but it also, the dark side of that is you can't make a tee time. If you want to make a tee time somewhere, you got to be on that day.
That's tough, and again, that's something I talked about the other day. A lot of times my rounds, especially when I was working at Harmon, where last minute I come in, I see the tee sheet. Oh, you had a 2:00 cancel. Okay, that means I'm done at noon.
Yeah.
Hey guys, who wants to play golf? Let's go. And it's kind of getting a little tougher to do that everywhere now.
Yeah, I mean the intentions are there, but it's just there's a lot of members at courses. COVID kind of bumped that up. People needed something to do. They joined. They had extra money. And now, I mean, how many courses are waitlist now?
Yeah, it's true. It's a conversation that I had up yesterday. A buddy chimed in. He's a member at a place up in Maine, kind of exclusive, and I think that place, the membership kind of influences the price of real estate.
Okay.
He's kind of asking, our waiting list is 20 years long, 200 people, and they're claiming that the membership is full. And he's like, well, why don't we just jack the price of the membership? Kind of clear out some of the herd, let some of those waiting lists.
Yeah, and you can get some revenue in that way.
At a place like that, I kind of see it. But at a place, a couple other buddies, some high-end courses down on Cape that have been there forever. Yep. You got the year-rounders that probably couldn't afford the increase, and you kind of lose that feel of who you are. So again, back to the stuff that I've been posting online. It's kind of all these questions that golfers should be talking about. They should be having these conversations with your buddies and where you're thinking about joining. Me personally, I'm a golfer. I could care less if you have the best restaurant in the world. You can sell me Bud Lights out of a trailer and I'm happy. I just want to show up.
Yeah,
good conditions, decent layout, good vibe, then the clubhouse.
Yeah, if there happens to be a good burger at the end of the round, whatever. Exactly. But I want to go to a place that the fairways are like cement, the greens are like cement.
Exactly.
That's fun.
I'd rather shoot 80 and walk off the golf course and say, man, that place just beat me up.
Yeah.
Then shoot 65 and be like, 150. What's my 150?
Yeah.
Get it, jump in the car, drive.
You don't have to think about the shot.
Exactly. It's boring to me. Again, kind of what I was getting into, I kind of lost track a little bit with talking about Golfers Warehouse. I don't think I could work there because I think the monotony of just regurgitating what those companies want you to hear every day would ruin golf for me. There's no back and forth. There's no.
Well, they're just trying to upsell that, and that's. I think when we met, I've been fit in the past by other guys.
Yeah.
And they always did a good job, but it was like, oh, you should get this shaft, you should get that shaft, and I'm going to myself, okay, so you You just bought a set of clubs, and sometimes the upcharge on the shaft was like more than the actual head of the club. And then when I met you, it's like, well, why are you hitting this? Like, what does it do?
Right.
Like, you're hitting these shafts that you don't even need.
That's
And then you realize, like, unless you're a touring pro or a really good amateur,
there's a small population, and you don't have to be a touring pro. I think a perfect example of a guy that could benefit is like Jack that I used to fit from BGC.
Oh yeah,
the older guy, better player, not ready to go to those game improvement stuff yet, but not good enough or long enough to keep up with him. There's some stuff in that very lightweight.
It will help you
but
for
then
sure.
there's the flip side of that coin. I've had some guys come in that have been fit into that lightweight, and then all of a sudden you put them into a little bit of weight, and the flight goes from this to this, and they add 30 yards because now it's that good combination of. So that's the thing. One of the biggest trendy shafts that drove me up a wall was the graphite design ADDI, that orange shaft. Everybody loved it, but what people don't realize, it was designed for Tiger. And anybody that knows anything about Tiger, he hated the transition from steel to graphite. He hated the transition from a wound golf ball to a solid golf ball, and he was always looking for spin. Well, that's what that shaft
did. Yeah, he's
a
big spin guy.
Launch, spin guy, it got it up in the air, and you see these guys getting fit into that. There's a couple guys Titleists that loved that shaft and kind of fell in love with it as spitters. And all of a sudden, everybody kind of kept falling into that, and all their staff guys would come back to me, and I'd be like, "Yeah, this is a bad fit." And then you put them in like something like the Rogue Silver that would just knock their spin rate down, and all of a sudden they're hitting it back to where they want.
Yeah, because Tiger can control the spin.
You're only hearing what marketers want you to. One of the shafts online that's like, "Oh, low spin," was the amount of white. In the low spin category, it was probably the highest spinning version of the low spin category. Now, it was Diamant's lowest spin shaft, so they're claiming it's low spin. So, that's the stuff that frustrates me as a club fitter, is the hype of everything. And I know I'm grumpy, and I'm known as, guys call me the Lorax because I go kind of grumpy all the time, but I'm just not gonna get my first boner looking at a set of tits out of.
No.
You feel like, oh, I looked at that shaft. It's so cool. Did you know? Like, let me see it. Let me hear it. Yeah. It was funny when reps used to come into my bay, they'd start with their spiel and just be like, I'll talk while you're hitting. I know you're not listening to me anyway, because I didn't want to hear it. Let me see it.
Well, it's like those companies, what are they, like True Spec, and what's that other place where you get fit indoors, like you don't, and they're selling people $500 shafts.
And you can't even see it.
No.
I can, and I don't mean to sound.
Do you think they juice those monitors, by the way?
I was just about to say that. They all do something. All monitors can. One thing I know that simulators do, and that's why most of the time you don't get fit into a screen and see a TrackMan number. You get fit into a scene and into a screen and you see the simulator numbers,
which are optimized,
and they shrink misses. So I had a guy that came into Harmon one day, and he got fit at one of those places. He got fit into a shaft that was a little bit too stiff for him, and consistently he was 10 yards right. Well, they were able to sell him there because it was a grouping. And they said, well, you probably
looks good on a screen,
right? And then he got into my bay, and you could see it. And I'm like, there's the eye test right there. I'm like, what, and he was a good player. He's one of the better players in the state. He's always playing in amateur tournaments.
Yeah.
He actually just played in the tri-state matches at Worcester. So some of these guys that I'm having conversations with still are some of the best players in the state. It's not, they know what they're looking for. There's not enough podcasts out there and apps out there talking about this stuff and informing the golfer. Like, listen, just because you went to the store and bought the new TaylorMade Q10, I can't look at TaylorMade. And that's a personal thing.
I've never been able to either.
I've sold a ton of it. I'm never going to talk anybody out of it.
It's good for certain people.
When I put it on the ground, it doesn't fit my eye. And those of you that have been following along with me in my career all know that I fit the guys from Barstool at Harmon one day. They did a cool video on it. And I had Riggs pretty dialed in. And we started laughing. He makes a joke at the end. And he's like, you didn't add 20. You added 25, and I'm hitting it straighter than I ever have.
Yeah.
Right? But now he switches to TaylorMade, and he hasn't hit a fairway in 3 years.
That's why Tiger can outdrive him on his knees.
Right? It's not a matter of sometimes the brand just doesn't fit your eye. It doesn't mean it's bad gear. It doesn't mean it's a bad fit. It just means
if you can't look down at it, you're not gonna hit a good shot.
Exactly. You know. So speaking of all the gear, what do you got in the bag these days?
Oh shit, dude! I just got fit. I have the T100S, which are I think like 2 degrees strong.
Yeah, they're a little bit trying to cheat. And that's the other thing too. I don't mean to interrupt. We'll get right back to your gear, but keep in mind, you know, some of these lofts are so strong, and everybody says, "Oh, I hit them so far because the lofts are so strong." But a lot of the center of gravity has gotten so far back that if they don't strengthen the loft, the ball will just
go straight in the air. I mean, for me, like I'm 42, so I'm getting pretty close to. I think I'm like halfway through my life right now, so I'm doing anything I can to get distance and like I don't really care about that stuff. But I have the T150s now. I got the SM10 Vokies. Love those. I think the shafts on the wedges are the most important part. Like people just buy them off the rack, but
it's all feel, yeah.
You know, I have like the shafts I play, like the LZs, the Project X 6.5s. I put those into my wedges. And then like on the woods, I got my first 7 wood, so that tells you how old I'm getting.
So you replaced what, the hybrid?
Yeah, I had a 915, dude.
Okay, yeah, it was time. What was the point of making the switch between the 7 wood and the hybrid? Was it just launch?
Consistency, like just off the like anybody can hit a hybrid off a tee, but it's like it never went in the same direction. Like you kind of never knew where it was going when you hit it off the fairway. But with the 7 wood, it's very consistent. Again, stock shaft on the 7 wood. I think I got one of the I forget the name, the hazardous.
Okay. Yep.
And then 3.
Flight down a little bit, and you can control flight with weight. You know, a lot of times you'll see the tour players. They may have a 70-gram fairway wood shaft, but then they have a 5 wood or 7 wood.
Yep.
And they'll add 10 or 15 grams to kind of control flight.
And I like hitting the ball high anyway, so I like the high flight. And then 3 wood, kind of same shit. I got Titleist 3 wood. I think it's a TSI actually. I'm still playing. I like that one. I like the way it feels. And then I have the new GT3.
What shaft do you have in that? I think you said you have the new graphite design.
New graphite design.
One, right? The UV.
No, it's the red one. Yeah, I forget.
XC, extra carry or something like that.
That's the only upcharge shaft I have in my bag, but I like the way the graphite designs feel.
And again, I have no problem with it. Like, it's so funny because I get into this. We had this discussion the other day. Everybody gives me a hard time because I'm beating down all the upcharge shafts and stuff like that. Nobody sold more sets of C16 than I did.
I remember that too.
My dad I got a set of C16s for my dad. They're in his bag.
Those were limited release?
Oh yeah, they were supposed to be. They made like 1,500 sets.
Yeah.
They found the golfer I don't think that they expected to find. You know, when they first released that iron, it came out with a graphite shaft. And then as we started customizing a lot of them, it kind of became that guy like Jack and the older golfer that's a better player that wanted more distance, wanted more control, but wasn't ready to go to graphite yet. So we saw a lot of C16 sold with like a lightweight steel. Or,
how do you feel about the steel fibers? I tried hitting them. I can't.
They're a little too stiff for me.
Yeah.
The steel fiber plays a little tighter. Most people don't realize this, but the benefit of graphite is you can make it play stiffer at lighter weight. So what the steel fiber does is it gives you that little bit of softer feedback that graphite does, but it also allows it to play a little tighter than steel does. So at 95 grams for me, that stiff feels like a Ford. And I'm
like the old what were those? The KBSC tapers. Remember those?
Those are another one. Yeah, that's kind of a good example.
I used to play those. Those were brutal.
It's basically the C taper for the guy that wants to make that switch to graphite.
Yeah.
It stays tight. It stays performing well.
I personally like a heavier shaft. I think it feels more balanced and.
Everybody's different. You know, I've talked about this in the past too. When I used to play for a living, my club head speed was up in the 112 to 113 range, and I was always a low spin guy. So they would try to put me in, lighter shafts to get my spin rates up, and I hated it. So I was a guy I always believed in a little heavier. I played the Fujikura 757.
You just hit knuckleballs.
Which was 76 grams. I played stiff instead of X because of how heavy it was. I'd tip it an inch to make it play a little tighter. But it helped me. I would just launch it at 15, leave it in the air forever, and just play it in point.
I love that.
Knuckleball that just flies.
You can almost see it wobbling in the air.
And the other thing too is there's no perfect. right?
No.
They can put me in a lady shaft and get my spin rates and launch angles dialed in, but it's going to take my misses and make them all over the lot. So it's that.
Well, that was one thing I remember. It's like tighten up your misses.
Tighten up your misses. There was a guy. Remember in New Bedford, I fit him, and I fit him. When we got dialed in, it was down to the PXG and the Titleist T200. We got him in a shaft that was tight, and his spin rates were low. But he launched it at 21, launched the 7.9 at 21. His landing angle was 55. At what point do you say, okay, all right, we're not going to get his spin rate dialed in without him losing forgiveness and control? Let's just have him hit a straight high ball, and then when it falls, and now he's, at the time I think he was a 12 or a 13 handicap. Now he's like a 4. So now he's kind of upgraded a little bit to a little better head that creates a little bit more spin.
I'm telling you, like when you get fit right, it helps your game so much.
And it's the difference of knowing what you're looking for and knowing what you're looking at and not standing down looking at an iPad. If I was looking at an iPad, of course, 55. Actually, I think it's more like 5,000 to 5,500 RPM with 7-iron is low. But what's the alternative at that point, right? You got to keep him under control and keep him in play.
I mean, when you look at the iPad, like a lot of these guys that fit, they're like fitting zombies.
Exactly.
And
they're looking for a number, and they're doing everything they can to get.
I don't care what I swing the club at. Like if it goes straight or whatever, and it goes far enough, it's good.
They wanted me to put a TV in the bed, Harmon. Finally, they put one on my desk.
I remember that, yeah.
And then I never turned it on because it's funny story, and I'm not going to say the name. He's a retired hockey player, and the owner kind of set up the fitting. And said, hey, you're going to fit his son. And the retired hockey player came, and he was kind of banging around the Scotty Cameron demos. He was driving me up a wall. Finally, we're about 45 minutes in, and he's like, what's your driver speed? And I'm like, I was like 117. Your sister was in here and singing at 122, and I'm like, Tiger doesn't swing at 122. Now, this girl is a U.S. Olympian hockey player, and I get it. She's probably a stud, and she probably creates speed. First of all, she ain't swinging at 122.
It's a big number.
Second of all, shut up. I don't want him to know his numbers for a reason. There's a reason.
I
don't want him chasing speed, and now all of a sudden, everything that we've done
turns to shit. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, the TrackMan can be very distracting, especially when you're obsessed with how fast you're swinging, and then you're like, oh, well, I think I can swing faster, and you start going and going,
chasing numbers,
and then you're hitting like duck hooks and low pieces of shit shots. It's just like, just let the fitter do his job. That's the biggest thing I took away from anything that I've known you for almost a decade now. Like, just you look at the iPad, like, oh, how'd that feel? How do you think it? Well, it felt good. It looked good.
Yeah, exactly. And it looked good. That's the key. It looked good. Like,
and you pretty much, like any decent golfer knows.
They know where to look.
Like after 2 or 3 shots, you know whether it's a good fit or not.
Or it's close.
Yeah.
So, all right, this one would be in the mix, or I don't like it. I don't like the feel of this. It's not in the window that I want. And sometimes that's a conversation. Like I said, the kid I was just talking about, he hit it to the moon. I don't want him to see what he's used to seeing. I want to say, hey, is that a little lower than what you used to do? That's what we're trying to get.
Yeah, you never even bring the numbers up. You already know the data's the data. Like,
exactly.
You can get the same numbers off of a TaylorMade, off of a Titleist, off of a Callaway. It's like.
And the thing that's frustrating me now is these companies are buying into it. Like Vokey now has the fitting app where you can go in and punch what you want out of a wedge, and they're going to say, play this, play this, play this. Well, then you get out on the golf course and you see the leading edge sitting this high off the ground, and you're like, oh, I have too much fun.
Well, where are you playing?
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
You're playing at a soft course like Indian Pond. You're playing at a hard course like Plymouth or BGC or OS.
So we used to play at
how many good golfers do you know? Like I have different wedges. Like if I know I'm going to play at like Indian Pond, I bring a 12 ounce.
Exactly. Yeah, and if you can afford to do that, you see the tour players do that. Justin Thomas is a perfect example. He has I believe it's the M and the T.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's the K and the T.
K grind, yeah.
And when he's playing, the year that you really saw it, and I thought more people would kind of catch on to this and kind of follow along with it, was the year that they played the Masters in November.
Oh yeah.
They played completely
different course.
Same thing with TPC Sawgrass. When they play, I hate the new schedule. By the way, that might be a whole other episode.
I haven't even looked at it yet.
About about golf on TV and why ratings are down. One of the things like TPC Sawgrass plays completely different in March on overseeded ryegrass
of
than it
course.
does in May on Bermuda. That's going to be firm and fast, and those guys are going to have different wedges that set up to that. Now, the average golfer, one, you're probably not good enough to tell the difference. Two, the guys that are probably don't want to spend the money to have two wedges. So you find something like I have. You know, I have the V grind, which is
that like middle,
which is 10 degrees of bounce when I put the club down, but the back edge is shaved off so bad that when I lay it down, it's basically
like a 4 bounce.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually reached out to Aaron Dill the other day. He had the T grind, which looks just like the V grind. So I sent him a message and I was like, hey, what's the deal with that? And he kind of responded. He told me one's higher bounce than the other. And then we kind of get talking about when I got hit by Bob.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty cool story, you know. We were talking wedges on the range.
When you went out to Cali there? Yeah, I remember that.
I was hitting some shots and I kind of laughing with the guy that was hitting me. And I'm like, I need a lot of heel relief because I'm 4 degrees flat. And it kind of perked his ear. He's like, who's 4 degrees flat? And he came over and he's like, oh, yeah, we need to get you into some bounce, but we need to get you some heel relief. And that's where the V grind came.
Okay.
So, you know,
I like that.
would never get fit indoors for wedges. You know, the only thing that I maybe would get fit indoors
How could you?
would maybe irons. You can kind of feel what's happening. You can see it. But even then, it's like you want to see what your misses look like.
I think the sight correlates with the feel.
Yeah, I've had so many.
Have you ever hit a bad shot into a net indoors? I haven't.
Well, yeah, I mean,
shoot my lowest rounds.
Shoot your lowest rounds on simulator.
Yeah, hell yeah, you do.
Again, you're gonna see that. You're gonna see those guys. What
about
the TRL? The Tigers. Is it TRL or TGL or whatever it is? That new indoor.
Oh yeah, I think it's cool. I mean,
I think you're gonna see some low scores.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
But
I mean, personally, I like the YouTube stuff like that Bryson does, and he's trying to break 50. I think that's more entertaining than watching a guy inside of a stadium. I mean, everything's like a stadium sport. Like, let's see what it's like, real conditions, real people. I like how they're bringing, you know, regular golfers into the mix. But I mean, you could have a whole conversation about like what's going on with influencers and guys like Bryson who have taken over, you know, have more views than like the PGA Tour.
What's your opinion on Bryson?
I like him. I've always liked him.
I always thought he was a tryhard. The beef with Brooks, I thought, was on Bryson. Brooks was being Brooks. Bryson was chirping him, and then would run to the principal's office. He picked on me. That kid.
Yeah.
But now that he's he's won some tour events, he's out on YouTube, he's found his own thing. I think you're finally seeing Bryson for Bryson, and I think the authenticity is so much better than it was.
Oh, 100%. He definitely did some work on himself.
Yeah.
But
so I think he's comfortable in his own skin now, and you're seeing him mature.
I mean, he went through all those stages. He was, you know, he bulked up. He was trying to kill the ball 400 yards. I mean, he still crushes it, but like he went through a lot to get where he is right now. And I think, you know, you have to. A guy like him, you can't really give a fuck what anyone thinks. And I think from day one, he never cared. Just the way he dressed, the way I remember when he first came on, he was dressing like Payne Stewart, which was cool. But
and it was different.
And
he knew he was going to take a beating for it, and he did it anyway.
But it was like he's just like that. I don't give a fuck type of guy. And
I think he's more that way now than he was when he first came.
Oh, 100%.
And I think the big.
I also think he's older. He's more mature.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's comfortable in his own skin, like you said. But he's going out with like everybody you see on Instagram, in like the president Trump.
Right,
he's going out and playing with guys like that, and those guys are all regular golfers.
They are,
and they're crushing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun to watch, and it's fun to see. I think the big contract with Puma put a lot of like, oh shit, on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
he had to kind of hype up what he was doing and try to fit the mold. And I think it kind of now that he's on his own now, he's kind of got his own thing. He doesn't have contracts with anybody. He's dealing with the live thing where everybody hates everybody on live, right? At first, not anymore, but at first.
Well, I think this year was pivotal what he winning the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, well, because everyone's saying, oh, these guys are only playing 54 holes. They're doing, like, they can't compete in 4-day events and 72-hole events. And then he goes out and he puts on an absolute display. Like, to me, it gave Liv a lot more credit
I think they should be playing. If they want world golf rankings, there should be a cut. It is something to playing Thursday and Friday, not knowing whether you're playing Saturday.
Yeah, I mean that's why half these guys who are 25, even younger, they look like they're 40.
Yeah,
like
stressed out.
With a worse hairline than I have.
One of the things that we talked about last week was, talking to the new fitter at Harmon, talking to assistant pros at your clubs. I think golf pros in general are just worn down, and I think you're starting to see.
Well, they're worn down because of bad management, bad decision making by people who don't play golf.
Exactly.
They're not into golf, so they don't have the same, like we said earlier, passion is the only word to it. Like you have to be very and because it's a volume play, and like what happened? The mic's been off the whole time.
So I'm an idiot. As you can tell, it's been a while. I'm an idiot.
Damn, dude.
We're gonna leave it. You're gonna understand why it sounds like shit because it came out. Fucking idiot. I was all worried about his. I forgot to turn my mic on. Back to what he was saying. You kind of get beat down. You lose that passion.
Well, it's like I can go into it here. Like when I first met you on the range at Harmon, and we kind of got talking and everything. I think Harmon was in a place where we needed to kind of catch up with like what was trending in golf at the time. We were doing a good job, but the technology wasn't upgraded. There was, TrackMan was really starting to become popular. People were getting into numbers, and like there was more to it than just like, oh, here's a club, here's your swing speed, like what are you doing? And we made that decision to bring you into Harmon or whatever, and it was just kind of like I wouldn't say it was a rapid decline, but like obviously there was some good energy when you came in, and then it kind of just slowly deteriorated where it was like, wait a second, this kid's kind of making Harmon known again, because it kind of was off the radar a little bit. It was kind of average at that before he came in. It was just like, well, whatever.
It was a 9-hole golf course. The learning center kind of had fallen off. The fitting.
Yeah, because like
they weren't selling many clubs.
They were actually they were ahead of their time too. I remember when they built that place, like they had cameras.
Yeah, they were the first. Yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of are still like one of the only ones. It's just like it's just been so mismanaged that it's. And I didn't even realize it until I sent somebody I knew there to get fit.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh wait, like I have to bring my build sheet to like the superstore. And I'm going to myself, well, why? And it's like then you find out they're.
I think what a lot of people that get into golf don't understand is what the overhead is, what the cost of stuff. Like wholesale on gear is so high, you're not making much margin at all.
But you also have to pay your bills.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole nother conversation that we don't need to scratch that surface. And like I said, when you get going, I'm going to rein you in. We don't need to go down that road. But like I said, I think they get into these businesses. I've kind of gone down some rants about my investor with Almeida Golf. I don't think he realized at first. TrackMan's expensive. You start adding in now. My original plan was to throw the high end, the sought after shafts in a bag and pull a trailer. Buy TrackMan, show up to courses, use their fitting kits, except for my upgraded shafts. When he got involved, there became the van.
That's what TrueSpec does.
Right. It started to get bigger than it was. And the idea of Almeida Golf was never Almeida Golf. It was always long-term to find a range, to have a home base, and then travel outside of there. I never really wanted the van, but once we got into it, now it's like, all right, the overhead's, it's big. You got to spend some build out. But once you have it,
it's done.
Now it's done. And I didn't want to deal with the retail side. I wanted to give that back to the golf professional. I'm coming in. I'm charging you guys a fitting fee. There it is. Here's your specs. All the golf professional I was asking for them was a small percentage. I mean, I'm showing up at your property to offer a service.
It's a better fit.
And the clubs that bought into it, we killed it. We did really well.
Yeah.
But it was the clubs. It was getting it in front of people that was tough, and that was kind of always. I melted down. I'm not gonna lie. When my dog died, I was on the antidepressant. I started blogging, and I kind of got into a really dark place. And then when I kind of realized, what, I'm not. That's not me. It's not who I want to be. I came out and I had the idea for the podcast to try to reboot my passion for golf again. And then whether I got into the business or not, I just wanted to be talking golf and be around golf and
because people still hit you. I mean, I hit you up for golf
all the time. I get guys calling me all the time. Hey, I'm thinking about getting fit. Where should I go? Hey, I got fit for this driver with this shaft. What do you think about that for me? And it's kind of always going to be me. It's what people know me for. That and being an asshole. And I don't care about that, right? Listen, we've had that conversation enough to know that, I'm going to tell it like it is. I don't target people. If you get caught, it's funny. I had a buddy reach out the other day. He used to be a member at Caddyshack. He actually just got into a top 100. I can't wait to hit him up for some golf. But
hell yeah.
He hit me up and he's like, he read the blog and he's seen the posts that I've been talking about with golf, and he's like, you must be pissing some people off. And I'm like, I'm not singling anybody out. I'm talking about a list and a type and a way to run a place and a way not to run a place. And if you don't like what I'm saying and you feel like I'm targeting you, you might have caught some ricochet shots, but I'm not wrong, right? I mean, it's not like I'm here to try. Like I said, as you kind of started talking, going Harmon and their bills and stuff like that, that's not what I want to do. But you can't talk about certain places without talking about the fact that there's a couple golf courses. I heard another one today. Valley Country Club doesn't even have a golf shop anymore.
Really?
Right? There's places that you can't even get a bag of teas because they haven't paid their bills in so long.
Well, that's a disservice to the members. If you're a member somewhere and you want to go get fit for clubs, go get fit. They're gonna buy the club. When I get fit for clubs,
it was 100% buy rate without me.
You have so many members that are they're a captive audience. Oh. They want to be better at golf. That's why they're there.
When they see it, they're like, can I get 2 of these?
Yeah.
I had guys that would literally be like, I don't want to change. People buy me 2 sets for different places.
People trip over their own dicks to buy
to get better golf.
Oh my god!
And when you go,
what would you pay? What would you pay to be a tour player? You'd pay anything in the world.
Yeah, to be able to peg it one time. I've played Canadian Tour events. I've played Hooters Tour events. I've played all these events, and I know how good they are. Do you imagine what it would be like to put a peg in the ground on Thursday at a tour event just one time?
Yeah,
it's different. It's a different way of thinking.
It's what every golfer who gets into golf fantasizes about.
It's what you think about. And if you can find a way to offer that service to your members, it's good. And unfortunately, too many guys are like, oh, well, I have an assistant that does that. Well, you have an assistant that also works 65 hours in the golf shop. And by the time he gets out on the driving range to fit Mr. and Mrs.
He's burnt out.
He's burnt out. And unless it's a player that he's friends with and that he really wants to dial in, you're not really going to get that service that you're
looking for. You need the back end support when you're fitting that many people. I mean, how many people did you used to fit in a day? I forget. It was a lot.
After COVID, it was probably, in season, it was 6 to 8, sometimes 10. Listen, everybody that worked at Harmon's probably laughing. He was never there. Trust me, I took my share of vacations, and not vacations. I never went on vacation, but my share of, okay, I can't do another 2 hours in the bay. It's 110-degree heat. Yeah. I'm pulling the plug, blocking my schedule that afternoon, and go play golf.
Yeah.
But it was the only way to keep your sanity, But for the most part, an average day, I'd probably say 5 days a week, I was in the bay an average of 6 hours to 7 hours.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Just 6 different people, 6 different personalities, 6 different golf games. And I did my best. Yeah, I might not have been the friendliest, but you got me 100%.
Well, again, too,
I never half-assed to fit.
Every fitting's like a lesson too. You're trying to guide. If a guy who's good goes in, you're not going to be giving him too much.
The only struggle with doing a lesson, and I have a buddy that worked at True Spec. I don't know if he still does, out on the West Coast. And one of the things he started getting down at, he was a newish golfer. He's finally breaking 70, so he's done it twice. So now he's starting to play some good golf. So he's starting to understand the golf swing. He's starting to understand what he's talking about. But what he doesn't understand is if I teach you while you're getting fit, and then the clubs come in and you're not swinging the way they don't fit anymore.
Exactly.
So it's tough. You have to have that balancing act between, I can't fit you. So when you go in for a fitting, go in ready to play golf, right? Yeah, you're hitting balls, but you're not practicing. The thing that drove me up a wall, you get guys that come in in flip-flops and no shoes and be like, is that the shoes that you wear?
You used to give me shit when I would wear my Air Maxes. Why are you wearing high heels to hit balls?
Which brings us to the next. It's funny because that's the next topic on the list is, the Jordan brand. You know, Jordan brand's making a huge jump into golf.
Yeah.
And I've always been on trend. You know, something we were talking about the other day. I'll never forget. It was probably 5 years ago now. Van Uren went on tour and he had the Grayson joggers on. A couple of my buddies. Yeah. I've known Grayson for years because they had it at Old Sandwich. Right?
Yeah, it's because the guy who started Grayson was RLS.
Right. So one of the guys that used to follow Grayson, they played in the pro scratch with us at OS. When I first took over Harmon, he talked to me about bringing it in. I'm like, I don't know if that's kind of our clientele yet. Let me see in a couple of years. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I started seeing
kind of blew up though.
I brought it in. Van Uren won. This was in the fall. And then two of my buddies, Sean Riley, who I know you played the Hands Cup with last week, and then his buddy were like, yo, those joggers, he's got a dope. I'm like, I already placed an order for the spring.
Yeah, those are
if
fresh.
You want, I can PUD those. And so they were the first ones to have Grayson down in that area. And then all of a sudden that spring was when JT signed with them. And then once Justin Thomas signed with them,
off to the right.
I love their outerwear, their hoodies and stuff. But
it's good. Like we're smaller guys. Like it's good. It fits guys that are small really well. Like,
but that brings up the question of what's the difference between fashion and golf. You know, you get this brand called K-Shoes, My Golf Spy. Don't even get me started on My Golf Spy. They posted another one today that had me.
I haven't even looked.
I got into it with them when I was with Titleist. They talk shit and they just don't know. They hype whatever company's paying them to hype it.
Okay.
And they trash some companies that
don't deserve it.
They don't deserve it, but they haven't even done any testing. Like, you know, like so. One of the things
that's not a fair shot.
One of the things that cracked me up a couple weeks ago was they had K-Shoes as the most underrated apparel company in golf. Well, K-Shoes has been around forever. They're the most overpriced, underhyped apparel company in golf.
I don't think I own anything from them.
They had the nice retention jackets.
No, I know what they are. I just don't like their style.
So it's funny. You see these companies and they push what they want to push. But at the end of the day, you start talking performance versus golf, fashion versus, you know, you're bringing Jordan into the equation. I'm not a huge fan of those shoes, spikeless shoes for a lot of players. Now, for a golfer that's under control and they're not swinging hard, they're not going hard, you're not going to slide or slip. But you start playing a golf course that's known as being soft and wet, and you're playing spikeless golf shoes.
Might as well have skates on.
And you might not slip, but you ain't creating the speed that you want to.
No.
You know, and I bring this up because he's got some soles around. I don't know where you put them.
I think they're right there.
But he puts them on the bottom of Jordans, right? He can create a golf shoe in a Jordan. But I talked about what I love about this is the spikes. What I don't love is the big heel.
Yeah.
You know, this heel pushes me out on my toes, and everything that you guys have seen if you've been following along on YouTube is I struggle with that, and I want to sit on my.
I think
heels.
Everybody does.
So you can keep rocking the Jordans, keep rocking these heels. It's good. I'm a FootJoy guy. It's been a while since I've hit them up and made some MyJoys. FootJoy, holler at your boy. But, you know, we've been rolling for like almost an hour now, and it's funny. I forgot to turn on the mic, and we'll see how this goes. But like I said, we're going to reboot this a little bit. One of the things that we talked about, you know, he's got the grow farm up in Maine, and we talked about maybe going there last year, going through the factory and seeing what the grow looks like. He's also got a dispensary up there in Maine called the Gas Station. For those of you guys that are skiers and snowboarders, you know, if you're up there, it's, you know, it all kind of blends in, you know. So it's like, you know, there's so many different angles of golf that unfortunately the thing that frustrates us in the business so much is stick to construction, stick to growing weed, let the golfers run golf. You know, I would never
100%.
go to you up in the dispensary and say, oh, you know what you should do to make this weed grow better? It would never even occur to me to do that. But a guy that's been a member at a club for 10 years, all of a sudden he thinks he knows better than the golf pro.
He's a greenskeeper or whatever,
You know, it's kind of getting to that point now where the vibe at a lot of places is golf pros are just credit card swipers. And if I'm going to be a credit card swiper, I'll do it up in Maine at his dispensary.
Or they committee a place to death, and it's like too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't know.
I see that point too, but I think there needs to be enough cooks to keep shit under control. You know.
Yeah, there's definitely, but there's a tipping point.
You get to a place, you know, like the superintendent that let Spring Valley get out of control, not the not the president that lost it.
Yeah.
The president before that let it get bad to the point where you had that nickname, the Hurricane, and you know conditions started getting bad. And the sad part is, once he left, a new president came in and they hired the superintendent from Pleasant Valley. They brought him over, and they had 2 years where the golf course was awesome.
Primo, because they used to host tour events, right?
Spring Valley didn't, but Pleasant Valley.
That's
did.
what I mean. Yeah,
exactly.
PV did.
Yeah, so they had 2 years where they saw what
Yeah,
Spring
they
Valley
knew.
could
Yeah,
be, And I saw a podcaster yesterday played the Cape Club of Sharon, and it looked great. So
it's always green.
I'm not bashing the place. I'm not bashing the new owners. I'm just saying it's not what it was. It used to be a member-owned private club, and now it's you're at the whim of the owner. If the owner has a bad year, you're going to have a bad
100%.
That's what committees kind of control that a little bit.
I mean, they kind of changed portions of the course for real estate. There's a part.
They did, yeah.
I don't know what number it is, but that
13
par 3
on the back used to be a great uphill par 3. I've heard they were going to build condos there, kind of between there and the tennis court.
I believe they did, and they shortened the
17 used to be a par 5 that went up this way.
Yeah,
and I think now it goes up this way.
It does.
So I haven't played there since they've done it, but I talked Ledgemont in my list of places that aren't what they used to be, and a couple guys chimed in and said, "Oh, the new owner's doing a good job." Well, that's great. It's not what it used to be.
No,
and it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see it because you start Agawam Hunt, I heard, is going out of business. Easton Country Club's going out of business. Pembroke is talking about developing. You're seeing all these golf courses, and a lot of them are just old classics. If they just got a little TLC, would print money.
They definitely would.
We got into it the other day, and I had a few people chime in when I was saying $500 a year on your dues is less than $50 a month.
Yep.
If you're willing to leave over $50 a month or less than $50 a month, there's probably a bigger problem at play because golfers don't want to leave. They got their boys. They got their crews.
They'll spend whatever.
They'll spend more money to be there. And at some point, sometimes it's addition by subtraction. If you also members, it's okay.
It's okay because somebody's going to be in line, especially not. Exactly. But if you're going to continually raise dues at a place, it's fine. But you have to show people what they're getting. Yeah. They have to see it.
Exactly.
It's like actions versus words, dude. I don't want to. I don't care. I'll pay whatever amount to play golf. But if it keeps going up and I'm not seeing an improvement,
and that's where I think me and you being back and forth, I think can be a good podcast because I think you're the 1% that doesn't care. You can afford that. You don't have to worry about that. But the guys like me, I was able to afford New Bedford pretty comfortably back in the day, and then it just got to a point where I was bringing guests all the time. I was playing any tournament. At the time, I was a professional. I'm not anymore. Wasn't able to play their major event, but I was playing whatever events they let me play. So it was plus, 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 plus. I mean, there was years that when Harmon was doing well and they were like, go take a group of guys over there to play that member guest. And then I would spend close to $20,000 a year after paying $3,500 for my dues, so that's not what you think about. And you start seeing these places that are charging $14 for a Bud Light and you're like, but their dues are low. Well, they got you trapped on property they think you're going to spend. That's when you get guys that are sneaking their own booze in. And that's when you start
stealing range balls.
Stealing range balls. That's another one that drove me up a wall. I'm the first to admit I'm a range ball junkie. It made me nuts when I would walk the range at Harmon and see a bad range ball. I would throw it out. Now, I was probably too far on that side. But no, you get to a point where it's like at what time are you thinking, penny wise, pound foolish, right? You got to spend money to make money. Range balls are a thing. Conditions. That's where it starts for me.
Because there's guys that just go bang balls.
Exactly. And there's some guys, especially at Harmon, that only join just to bang
just to hit balls. So
you offer them
that's why they're there.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you can go up the street, to Ritter in Whitman, and they have one of the best ranges around.
Great setup. Yeah.
It's flat, it's long. They have pins, they have targets, but their range balls are actually pretty decent. You're not gonna get a Granite Links range ball that's flat and goes in 5 different directions when you hit it. If you're spending, I don't know, $10, $15 a bucket, isn't a lot.
Well, it is, but it's not.
You're doing it every day.
It's not in today's society. But a guy from Truspec lives out in L.A. Sent me a picture of a bad range with bad golf balls, $20 a bucket.
Yeah,
it's getting out of control. That's getting out of control too. I was walking through.
But they have new balls. Ritter has brand new golf balls.
See, that's perfect. Then I'd pay a little bit of premium. So again, there you go.
$10 for a large bucket, by the way.
That's where you look at perfect plug right there, right? Ritter, $10 for a range bucket that's got good golf balls. I go to the place Caddy Shack up in Dartmouth, $12 for a large bucket. same thing. They have pretty decent golf balls. You know,
Yeah,
I wish they could get a little bit better grass facility. You know, the section of
decent
the mat
mats.
where it's a little furry.
Yeah.
So I just play everything like I'm hitting out of the first cut. But this is the stuff that I wanted to talk about. You know, like the difference between me of somebody next to me. Yes, I'm going to say some shit you're not going to like, and no, I don't really care if I offend you. But
Doesn't
at the
bother
same
me.
time, I'm not. But at the same time, I'm not going to go on a rant about it for an hour. You know, a lot of the topics that I started the podcasts with were pretty good, and then I would
But you
just go to a dark place.
I think the intentions were good.
Yeah.
I think just from my first inning and knowing you pretty well is you got burnt out.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that went on towards the end that kind of pissed you off a little bit, rightfully so. And you used technology and what's available to you to kind of vent and get it out to an audience, and
Exactly.
it kind of worked, and you were here now. So it's like I think bringing it's a lot easier to have a discussion with somebody next to you, like you said, and just like keep it about golf. We'll talk about places that are great to go hit balls, like who has new range balls, what courses are doing well, what the conditions are, where to get fit, which is really tough to find a good place nowadays.
It is right now, yeah. It's steep flight.
It's most of the time the only, fitting, for example, like if you want to get fit, you got to make an appointment at your club. Like they might be having like a certain brand there.
That's one thing I will say. A lot of the brands have realized how much they were losing to fitters. So they started putting money into their demo days, and it's more fitting days now where you're getting a lot more one-on-one with a knowledgeable fitter.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're a guy that has his mind made up, I don't support this. I don't think it's a good idea. But if you're a Titleist guy or a TaylorMade guy and you don't want to see or feel anything else, you're better off just getting fit by one of their fitters.
100%.
And not paying for it because they know what they're doing. They're
Good.
knowledgeable.
They're good.
I would say you get the top percentage of fitters that they're gonna be better. They look at all the outside variables. They're not number regurgitators. They have their own opinions, but for the most part, you're getting number regurgitators. So you may as well go.
I think numbers are good, but they should just be used as like guides. That's it. It's like you have your tolerances, and that's kind of what you go with.
It's funny. The first year we had Titleist Thursdays out on the range at Harmon.
Those were awesome.
I was done working for the day, so I went out and sat with the fitter. I had trained him. I had worked with him. He's now the Puma Cobra rep.
Okay.
So we had talked, and I was sitting there. So I flipped one of the buckets upside down, and I was just sitting there, kind of with my arms crossed, and the guy would hit a shot. I'd be like, what was that? 12-degree launch, 2,600 RPM.
I remember that.
And I was within 100 RPMs. I don't need TrackMan. I do it for you to show you. I can tell.
That was some sorcery.
Just by what it sounds like, what it looks like. I can see what I'm looking for. And that's one of the best things that I learned while I was out at Titleist on the West Coast getting trained by Glenn, who's one of their top fitters. He was fitting a guy that was at like 8,000 RPM with the 7-iron. A little too high, but he was also a low launch guy, and he needed that extra sitting power. So one of the fitters raised their hand and said, hey, wouldn't you change shaft to try to figure out that? And he said, his misses were tight enough. His control was better with a little added spin. So we're going to leave it there. Now, the better player you become, the more that becomes the case. As these guys get a little higher handicap, the more spin equals more dispersion.
100%.
It equals more dispersion this way. If you miss, if you're spinning at 7,000 when you hit it good, and all of a sudden when you hit it bad, it's going 9,000, you're in the water short 100%. Right instead of on the green. So there's different parameters that good fitters look for. But again, like I said, if you're one of those average golfers that wants to get fit into a solid set of clubs, a demo day where those guys can
they're great.
The numbers.
They're great.
It's plenty good enough for most golfers. So
and you get to see the ball, which is important.
Exactly. So.
Awesome.
All right. Hopefully, I can figure out the mic thing. I can't believe I'm an idiot. Forgot to turn this one off.
You might have to hit up Elon for that.
We're going to set this up a little better. We'll start getting some guests on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've actually had a few golf pros a ton of sales reps behind the scenes talking, because obviously that was who I dealt with the most,
100%.
in my industries. But I know some superintendents and some golf pros that have reached out and said,
Oh,
hey,
yeah,
if
we'll
you
get
want
a
to have
good
a
group
guest,
of
so
guys in.
we'll start getting some conversations.
100%.
There's 477,000 podcasts that all talk about the newest, coolest, greatest thing, and that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about golf stuff, what we talk about at the club level. What golf course is good, why it's good.
100%.
Where did they punch yet? Should we go play there? Other little stuff. I was going to start today talking about the Celtics last night. I know he's not a sports guy.
I didn't even know they won last year.
Yeah,
I saw them raising the banner.
Exactly.
Good job.
But again, everybody tuned in for them to raise the banner, and right as the banner got halfway up, TNT cut the commercial. You didn't even see the banner go to the rafters, like the most famous rafters in sports, the Boston Garden.
And they cut out.
And TNT cut away from it. So it's just, but again, that just shows you nobody's perfect, and even some of the people at the top of the highest food chains can be idiots at times, and they need to be checked.
Oh yeah.
And if they're not, then shit gets out of control. And if you check them nicely a few times and they don't hear it, sometimes you got to check them a little unnicely and shake the box.
Well, I'll let you do. That's your job.
I'm not afraid to do that.
I know.
But again, that was never the point of this podcast. It was never about attacking people. I had thought at the blog, got that out of my system. I woke up one day and I'm like, if it was nice out, I would probably go hit balls. It was in the middle of January, and it kind of got to March, and I was watching the players, and I'm like, that golf course is so bad right now because of how soft it was.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about that. And it just kind of got off the rails a little bit. So now that you're starting to see the podcast, you're starting to see the social media start being a little bit more about golf and starting to get people back involved. Hopefully we can make this succeed a little bit. Get some guests on here, talk about some
absolutely
things. And I'm not afraid to bring guests on that talk shit. If you disagree, that's fine. I posted a thing yesterday that said,
shit talk all you want.
I can have a conversation with people that disagree with me. But just understand, if you make it personal and you get disrespectful, like Bob the Builder when he said, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, I'm going to do everything I can to make you look as bad as I
I'll just disagree with you about on the shoes. I'm never wearing FootJoy.
I'm a FootJoy guy. It's who I've been forever. It's performance over look. I wear my Jordans. I'm a sneakerhead, right? I mean, you saw the collection. We'll get into that a little bit, but I'm a performance first guy. So, if it fits right, it feels right. I want to play golf. I don't have to worry about falling down. And I'd wear a pair of Reebok football shoes if it meant I was going to play better golf. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. And who knows? Maybe we get some of those reps on, some of the guys from inside that are making these soles and things like that.
Yeah,
we can talk about that. So there's so many different angles that we could go with this podcast. I don't want to be that typical, buy that graphite design shaft. I don't want to sit here and rant for an hour about golf stats.
No, you can go Google that shit.
You can go Google. I don't want to talk about the PGA Tour. We got into that a little bit, and we will discuss it. Obviously, the majors and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's out there.
Everybody talks about that, right? One of the things that I saw yesterday was Charles Barkley was talking about the guys being idiots, and I thought he was talking about the WNBA. And then I clicked on the thing, and he's talking golf. He's like, these two tours need to get together. We need the best players in the world to come together a little more often.
I mean, we could talk about that for hours.
But everybody's talking about that. So, I'm going to scratch the surface on it a little bit, give our opinions. But for the most part, I want to talk golf. How you playing? What are we doing?
Well, tomorrow, playing Old Marion.
Nice. Little Marion. Little Marion. In Marion, Mass?
Yeah, Marion Golf.
Okay. All right. Marion, yeah.
Yeah.
Little Marion is what it's called, known as.
Well, you're from down there.
But that's a perfect club that, how does a hole-in-the-wall, 120-year-old golf course that's known for being where beginners start become the talk of golf in Massachusetts?
There's a lot of good stuff going there.
Because you got new owners that are thinking golf first. Every change that they've made there hasn't been about the bottom line. It's been about what are golfers going to think when they see this.
I got the right architect coming in too.
Yeah, anytime you start mentioning Gil Hance and stuff like that, that's the sad part too. And I don't mean to bash Caddyshack, and I'll try to go back to Caddyshack because it became a mythical club where I got guys coming in saying it can't be one place that you're talking about, and it really was, unfortunately. But we'll go back to it, and I'll start. If I see something bad in golf, we're going to say Caddyshack, and I'm not talking about New Bedford anymore. If I got something to say about New Bedford, I'm going to say it. The sad part is they had Brad Klein on property. He put an 18-page report on what
Oh,
to do
really?
and how to do it and what his thoughts
They
were.
didn't do shit.
He doesn't know what he's talking about. And you know what the best one was? And they said, well, you guys had Brad Klein out there, and he's an expert. And their response back was, oh yeah, and he'll tell you about it too. Of course he will. Like, how do you sell
what
your
he
business?
does for a
That's
job.
what you do for a living, of course.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit arrogant. He doesn't want to hear your bullshit reason for saying something because he knows you're wrong. And he said, all right, let's get to the answer
But
first.
then you take a course like Marion, and you're like, holy shit. I mean, you should have seen the drones that were flying around the other day.
Really?
Measuring everything.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what Gil does with it, because he's a big wall guy. There's tons of walls there.
Yeah.
Just like the old school feel of that place is wild.
And it's like I said the other day, the good architects keep the golf course the way it is, right? If you look at Plymouth, they have a completely different tournament routing than they do a regular day routing.
Yeah.
You play 1 through 3, and then you go to 4. Well, when they play tournaments, you start on 4 and you finish on 3. They didn't want to finish on a par 3. So they didn't like the way 8. So on a member day, they finish on 18 now.
Okay.
But on tournament days, tournament players don't care. You look at Pleasant Valley is a perfect example. When they used to play the tournament there, that wasn't the first hole. That wasn't the route.
Oh, okay.
And you'll hear that a lot. The Country Club is a perfect example. They brought 3 holes from Primrose for the U.S. Open. So, there's ways to do that where you don't change the way the golf course plays to accommodate for trash bagging net golf. So I hate net golf. The saddest part is, but you can't ignore it because it's the biggest part of golf 100%
is.
And that's okay.
It is.
But don't ruin golf trying to accommodate net golf.
I agree with that.
Keep golf first, and then, okay, how do we make this property accommodate net golf? Too often you're seeing, how do we accommodate houses or accommodate this?
Well, that's the big trend now.
It's bad golf courses accommodate everything else. Good golf courses. OS, you talked about OS earlier, right? That was always going to be a development and houses or whatever, but not across the bridge.
Yeah.
They didn't want the golf course to worry about this house has to go there. That house.
Yeah, no,
they wanted the golf course. Here it is. Here's the property. Set the golf course up, and then we'll figure out the real estate. And as it turns out, now that they've brought the gates in, the real estate now is all outside, and it's considered part of Pine Hills now. So, which is awesome. It's anybody that
course is way too nice to have houses sitting on it anyway.
Yeah,
that place is beautiful.
It's one of those things where the special part about that place is once you're over the bridge, everything else goes away.
Oh yeah.
You don't see anything else. There's no
it's all golf.
girls.
It's all golf.
You know what I mean? Like
That's it.
If you want a drink, you call the shop and they run a drink out to you. They do it through roads that you barely ever see where they are until all of a sudden
they just pop out.
They're right.
There you go.
Exactly. It's kind of like one of the former assistants from there is now an assistant at the Grove, and you've heard about the drones.
Yeah.
I had a few opportunities to play there. I haven't had a chance to get out there.
Yeah, I haven't been out.
So that's kind of one of the things. The other thing I started kind of thinking when we did the podcast was, and it happened last year. Some invites to play some cool golf courses.
Yeah.
One of my golf buddies that we talked golf about, he was on the podcast earlier in the year. Mike Young. We were talking about the top 25, and he's a member of Worcester. He's never played BGC.
Oh yeah.
Like I had the opportunity to bring him to OS, and he's that golf nerd, right? And it was one of those days we were supposed to play my club. An OS member was like, "Hey, can you fit me?" I was like, "Well, since you asked, fit you this day if you want to host a group." And I brought them out, and they had both golf junkies, and they just geeked out the whole time. And it was cool watching them enjoy every little piece of the property.
Yeah, they're into it. The architecture, and all of it.
Boston Golf has that. They did as good as they possibly could with the property they were given.
Yeah, definitely a unique property.
When you're doing some routing stuff, and there's a couple greens that you didn't need to make it that hard. Like, you're just tricking it out. It's hard. Like the par 3, the 11th
I'm obviously biased, so
the 11th
I love that
is
course.
Great par 3. Make the green fair.
They already did.
Did they?
They leveled it up. Yeah, they did.
They did some of the stuff that
they did a lot of. Boston Golf has done an amazing job, like changing what needed to be changed to make it more fair.
And most of the good golf courses do.
Yeah, and they listen to their members, but I think that's the best course.
Yes, I think if you go hole by hole, and we can start it. I'm not going to get into this rant, but
we'll settle in the parking lot.
Or we'll go out. Who knows? Maybe we'll go out there and play both courses, and we'll kind of put together a video of likes and dislikes and what.
Yeah, we could definitely could.
It's funny we were talking about.
I like both. I mean, I like both. Of them.
And again, like I said, just because I'm saying one's better than the other doesn't mean it's. I
just like BGC better.
You grew up there, you know every nook and cranny of it. See, I like OS better because I played 1,000. When I was first started there, I started in the valet outside, and I wasn't able to use a cart. I had to walk it, and I would walk it every day at 3 o'clock. There was nobody around. Now, since COVID, golf has changed. There's more members there.
Oh, yeah.
But I would spend just a couple hours by myself, just kind of wandering around, and I saw every little nook and cranny. And, you know, it's just different walking a place by yourself. You see stuff.
Oh, definitely. You know, that's how BGC was when I first joined. I mean, there were no members. You just kind of going on a nature walk.
That's how Caddyshack was when my first couple of years. I go there Saturday and Sunday afternoons with my dog. Play 18 holes in an hour and just kind of just that was my alone time. It was kind of my mental health time, you know.
Your me time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
But we've kind of scratched the surface a little bit on what we're going to talk about. Like I said, we'll get a little bit more organized. I was spending time setting up the office, trying to get organized. I forgot to turn my mic on, so hopefully it didn't ruin the first half of the episode. But it was fun. We'll do it again. Yeah, man. And we'll start calling out, trying to get some guys on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's some guys that are eager to talk about their property and hype
Absolutely.
Stuff up.
Especially locally.
Yeah, exactly. So
it'll be good.
But until next time, guys, I hope you guys are still on board. I apologize for going down that dark hole. But if anybody has any questions on antidepressants and bad thoughts and doing some crazy shit,
He's your guy.
I'm more than happy to talk about it. It's been out there now. You can't hide it.
Do you accept insurance?
It is what it is. What's that? I probably should start charging, you know.
You probably could.
That's part of what this could be, too.
You could be a brain fitter.
This could be turned into, like, mental health talk for golfers. You know,
there's a lot of it.
And I don't mean, like, the dark side of the mental health. A lot of the, man, I got out on 12 yesterday, and that hole just got me, right? There's golf courses that you just don't play well. But doesn't make them bad golf courses.
No, not at all. I agree with that.
The difference between a golf course and a golf experience.
100%, man.
All right, guys. Hopefully we'll be a little better next time.
Later.
Let's go.